So you've managed to pay your visa fees, you've scheduled and booked your appointment, you've watched our 2 previous videos, and now you're here. The day of the interview has finally arrived. In this video, we're going to dive into some of the questions you might get asked and how you should answer them. Stay tuned. The first question that you're likely going to be asked is, what is the purpose of your visit? Or why do you plan on coming to the UK? Or what brings you to Canada? It's the same question that they're asking you, and they just want to know why you're going. So while answering this, the best thing, be honest. Try to give a short, simple answer without giving too much information. For example, if you have a student visa, you can say, I'm going to study my master's, or I'm going to visit a friend if you're a tourist, or I'm going on vacation, I'm going to visit family, depending on what you're doing. I'm going for a conference, I'm going for a wedding, I'm going for a birthday, I'm going for a graduation, depending on the exact thing that you're going to do. But this answer is going to determine all the other answers that you're going to give throughout the process. The second question they might ask you is, how long is your stay? You should be able to know how long you're going to stay. If it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just answer it that way. You can put it in weeks or days, 14 days, 15 days. If it's an odd number like, let's say 17 days, you can say a week and a half, stuff like that. Just give simple answers. Remember, like we said in our previous video, don't give out documentation if you've not been asked. Okay, another thing you might be asked is, do you have any friends or relatives in that country that you're going to? At this point, many people like to mention long distance relatives. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Just mention the close relatives that you have. If you have sisters and brothers, if you have a parent in that country, this is the time to mention that. If you say you have a parent or a sibling in that country, they're going to want you to expound a bit on that. Oh, how long have they been there? They'll ask you follow-up questions based on the answer you give. If you're going as a student, still you'll be asked if you have friends or relatives. I don't think it's relevant to mention if you have friends unless they're really close and they're going to be part of your itinerary, which you will have. So when they ask you for documentation to support the days that you're going to stay, at this point you should have an itinerary or a hotel that you booked, depending on where you're going to do. In another video, we're going to talk about the specific documentation that you should have prepared for your interview. In this segment, we're just concentrating on the questions. All right. So they can ask you, how will you pay for your trip? At this point, they just want to determine if you have enough money to cover your trip. You should have done your research by now. So if you're going for 2 weeks, you should know maybe you're going to use 100,000 Kenya shillings or $1,000 or 1,000 euros, depending on how long you're going to stay. You should be able to have a basic number depending on your itinerary, the food you're going to eat, where you're going to stay. If you have accommodation that your friend or family is going to give you, this will come into play when you're talking about the budget for your trip. So here they just want to know, can you be able to afford your trip? And some of you are asking, what if I'm not paying for my trip? Somebody else is paying for my trip. Say your parent or you have a sponsor. Not the type you're thinking. If you have somebody that's financing the trip for you, this is the point where you mention this. So how will you pay for the trip? Oh, I have a parent or I have a sibling who's going to pay for my trip. Oh, so I think if you're older than 21, it's usually a good idea to be able to pay for your own trip. Otherwise, circumstances are different. Sometimes maybe you're not the one financing the trip in real sense and somebody else is actually paying for the trip. You should have the supporting documents that prove that this person can actually afford to pay for the trip. This question just wants to test, is the money enough to take you and bring you back? Next question is, what do you do for a living? Or what's your career? Or what do you do? This question is daunting. Some people are tempted to give long sentences of what they do. But at this point, just give a simple answer. I'm a doctor. I'm a secretary. I'm a receptionist, I'm an athlete, I'm a content creator, I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor. Depending on what you're doing, just give a simple answer. A follow-up question to this would be, how long have you been working there? They want to know, have you been in your career recently or longer? Usually it helps your case if you've been working for more than 3 years. It shows that you have a lot more to lose if you don't come back. You should also have supporting documents just in case they ask you to prove that you have a job. We'll talk about supporting documents in another video. Why did you choose to come to XXX country? You should be able to answer this. Why did you choose them over any other country? There are many countries in the world. Why them? People have different reasons. The most common reason I could think of off the top of my head is you like the weather, or the weather is completely different. If you come from African or Caribbean countries, you know that the weather is usually warm throughout the year. If you're planning your visa to a country in Europe or places that experience winter, this is the time to mention that. It's a good answer. Or any other reason that you have. Maybe that's the only place you wanted to go to. It depends. Just give a simple answer, but don't give too much backstory. Are you traveling alone, or are you going to be traveling with somebody else? If you're traveling with somebody else, you have to mention this, and you have to determine your relationship with this other person. Are they your child? Are they your spouse? Are they your family member? Are they your friends? If you're traveling as a group, this is the time to mention that, and of course have supporting documents for this. Another question you might be asked is, how much money do you make? This question is interchangeable to how are you paying for this trip, because they just want to determine if you have the financial capability of paying for the trip that you're going to. If it's a long-term stay, I think for student visas, they require specific bank statements that show that you're able to cover the fees for international students. For tourist visa, they just need to know that you have income, or you have a stable amount of money in your account that would support you wanting to visit that place. So at this point, you give an average. You can say I make between $500 to $2,000 a month or a week, or depending on how you get paid and how you want to divide the amount. Also, while you're talking about money, make sure that you have the supporting documents in your pamphlet to support these statements. Make sure that everything you're saying, you have proof of it. If you're going on a student visa and they ask you, why did you choose this program? You should be able to give an answer. But this question is usually very tricky because it gets some people denied, because most adults in African countries have a general degree or a diploma. If you're applying for a student visa and you're going to do your master's, whatever you're going to do should be related to what you're currently doing or your current career. For example, you have a degree in hospitality, or you have a degree in business. You're working as a paralegal or a secretary or a waitress. You're applying for a student visa and they ask you, why did you choose this program? At that point, first of all, the program that you're choosing should be related to that field. It should be a program that supports business or supports hospitality. If you don't have a degree and you just have a regular job and you're saying you're going to do your master's or certificate, diploma, whatever you're going to do, even if you're going to do a short course, it should be related to what you're currently doing. There should be a relationship between it. For example, if you have a job and you're saying you're applying for a visa to go to do a certificate or a diploma in a foreign country, you can just do a diploma certificate in your country. What is so special about that particular program in another country? You should be able to give an answer like, your career right now, you're anticipating a promotion in a year, and this program will guarantee that promotion. This is a good answer because it gives a relationship between what you're currently doing and what you're currently applying for. Just make sure that whatever answer you give for those applying for conferences and student visas, that what you're going to do is directly related to what you're doing right now. This is where people usually get tricked up. If you have some questions that you might want the answers to, drop them on the comment section and I'll be happy to answer you. Stay tuned for the next video. We're going to talk about supporting documents.